Hello, my name is Taya Graham, and welcome to the Police Accountability Report. As I never get tired of saying, this show has a single purpose, holding the politically powerful institution of policing accountable. And to do so, we don't just focus on the bad behavior of individual cops. Instead, we examine the system that makes bad policing possible. And today, we're going to achieve this goal by showing you a disturbing video of a violent arrest of a cab driver stopped in a no parking zone. And we're going to ask a fundamental question about what happened and what is the true price of using force when a warning or a simple parking ticket would have sufficed. But before I get started, I want you watching to know that if you have evidence of police misconduct or brutality, please email it to us privately at par@therealnews.com or message me directly at Taya's Baltimore on Twitter or Facebook. And please like, share, and comment on our videos. You know I read your comments and appreciate them. Now, as I just mentioned, we need your input to produce this show. In fact, many of our episodes are based upon tips from viewers like you. And today we're going to focus on one of them. It's body camera footage of a Lucas County, Ohio sheriff making the arrest of a cab driver last year, just as the pandemic started. It was sent to us by Mr. Salim, the victim of the sheriff's violent arrest. The incident started outside a mall in Toledo, Ohio in March of 2020. Salim is a cab driver who had just dropped off a patient who was picking up essential medication at a Walmart pharmacy. An assistant manager of the Walmart approached his cab and a conflict ensued. Let's listen to Mr. Salim give his version of what happened.
I parked my car, the customer went inside, they have 10 minutes to pick up their med and come out. And then I take them home. The guy, Walmart worker, he approached me. I didn't know what he was. Later on, I found out he was assistant manager. I was on the phone, so I hung up the phone. But he started screaming and using 4 words. And we exchanged some words, and he started threatening me to get off the car. I got off the car, and then he called this sheriff guy.
Shortly after the manager left the scene, a Lucas County sheriff showed up, and as you can see in this video, immediately escalated the situation. Let's watch.
You're parking in a no parking zone.
I understand. I just dropped the client here.
Okay. Can you produce your driver's license, sir?
I will, but you need to tell me the reason.
Go ahead and step out of the car.
You need to tell me, officer.
Go ahead and step off the car.
Hold on, officer. Officer, hold on.
Come on.
Don't force me. Don't force me. Hold on. What I did wrong? Don't touch me. Don't touch me, officer.
Get out of the car!
What I did wrong?
Now!
What I did wrong, officer? What I did wrong? This guy, he come and start me.
293, Lucas. Start me a Sylvania Township unit.
Officer.
Step out of the car.
Officer. Okay, hold on. No, let's talk.
You want to? I'm going to tase you if you don't get out of the car.
For what reason? I am getting off.
Out of the car. No. Hands up against the...
No, hold on. Officer, hold on. What I do wrong?
Don't come off.
What I do wrong? Officer, what I did wrong?
Stop resisting!
I'm not resisting.
Turn around!
Okay, hold on.
Turn!
What did I do wrong?
Put your arms on the top of the car!
I am. What did I do wrong, officer? Because the guy, he come and talk to me. What do you want to bother me? I'm here doing my job. What I do wrong? What are you doing? What are you doing? Leave me alone. Officer, leave me alone, officer. Call the supervisor. Officer, leave me alone. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Get me.
What are you doing to me?
Within seconds of the encounter, the sheriff had drawn and deployed his taser, threatening to use it repeatedly. And then he used the words that we have heard many times before on the show, which often presages the use of force. Stop resisting. Let's listen.
Stop resisting!
I'm not resisting. I'm diabetic.
Stop resisting!
I'm not resisting.
Get on the ground!
Officer, what I did wrong? I didn't do anything wrong. I did not do anything wrong.
Now, before we talk to the man who was subjected to being tasered and assaulted, I'm joined by my reporting partner, Stephen Janis, to find out what he has learned about this video. Stephen, thank you so much for joining us.
Tay, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Stephen, you've been looking into the case and reaching out to authorities in Lucas County. What have you uncovered?
So I sent an email to a Captain White at Lucas County Sheriff's asking some very specific questions about the case. What I wanted to know was, first of all, how was the use of force justified? Did the officer file a report about using the taser? Did the officer conduct an investigation that was proper? Did he ask questions? And what really, in essence, gave him the right to tase this person so quickly into the encounter? So far, I have not heard back. But what's interesting is we did an analysis of the video, and we heard the officer actually give his justification, which raised a lot of questions. Let's listen.
One of the managers came over here to ask him to pull out of the no parking zone, and taxi driver started calling him a bunch of racial names, and then he got out. He exited his car, told him he was going to kick his ass. So they called me over. I was standing over there. Come over here. He wouldn't ID himself, and then when I opened the door and tried to remove him from the car, he wouldn't come out. So I finally had to forcefully get him out. He wouldn't stay against his car like I asked him to, so resisting arrest. And then I tased him, but one hit his sleeve, and the other hit his abdomen area. Neither one penetrated his coat. So it was a deployment, but there was no contact. So I followed up with a drive stun. That's the only way I got any compliance out of him.
So as you can see, the officer seemed to think that by exercising his First Amendment rights or getting into an argument, justify the use of a near lethal force. So really it raises questions, but we're waiting. We're going to keep on the Lucas County Sheriff because I want these questions answered.
Now, the use of tasers is technically called less than lethal force, but that's not always the case, right?
Well, as we know, Amnesty International did a report about a decade ago that documented 334 deaths over a period of 7 years from tasers. And I personally, as a reporter, have covered multiple deaths from tasers. People who were healthy, young, didn't have any pre-existing medical conditions, dying because it basically stops your heart. I mean, it shocks your whole nervous system. So no, it's a very dangerous weapon. In this case, I guess, fortunately, as we found out, the taser did not deploy. It's extremely dangerous.
Now, to find out more about what happened and the consequences of what appears to be yet another questionable arrest, I'm joined by the man in the video, Mr. Saleem. Mr. Saleem, thank you for joining us. So, Mr. Saleem, you're an essential worker, right? Tell us why you were at the Walmart.
I mean, we are a transportation company. So many of the people who have medical issues, they're older, or they don't have no driver license. The only mean for them to get their grocery, the only mean for them to get to the medical, their doctors, or to pick up their medicine is to call us. And the county, mostly the Lucas County, cover their expenses.
Mr. Saleem, tell us about your arrest.
He pulled me out of the car, twisted my hand, and all this time I was asking why this happened to me. I was asking him, I need to talk to your supervisor. He didn't want to have it. He was screaming loud, aggressive, twisting my hand, is tasing me and my back and my knee. I got injured in my knee for the tasing. Went to the emergency. After I got off the jail, they make the whole place a scene like I'm a criminal. They were like I don't know, maybe more than 5 police cars was there. There was city police, city of Sylvania police there. There were fire trucks there. There were, this was a Lucas County sheriff who was doing this.
How much did this cost you in time lost from work or impound fees, things like that?
The financial probably about, all together, it cost me $5,000 altogether.
You also had trouble with the criminal justice system as well. Tell us what happened.
The problem is not just the police. The problem is the criminal justice system. The criminal system is not right. I mean, if you're poor, you cannot defend, you get a public defender, he will go over, he will take a plea deal. I mean, you don't get the enough, but enough, you cannot afford to defend yourself legally because, this, you may have a 30 case for today that he want to go over all them quickly and then take a plea deal. They were trying to put you 5 years, just took 2 years. He didn't do no investigation, nothing. So the criminal system is really the problem, because that's why the police are getting away with what they're getting away with.
Now, one of the ongoing concerns of this show has focused on a concept that gets little attention, but certainly deserves more. And it is challenging the idea touted by elites and the mainstream media that more policing, for lack of a better term, leads to good policing. That no matter how much money you pour into law enforcement, that ultimately this translates into increased public safety. So, to test that theory, let's try something a little different on this show. Let's look at the facts, consider the costs, and weigh the outcome of these arrests through a very specific lens. What is the cost benefit? I want to use these criteria because so much of the justification for our country's law enforcement is couched in hard to define idealistic terms. You know, the last line of defense against some unforeseen enemy, the human barrier between right and wrong, all hard notions to quantify and even harder to assess against the backdrop of limited resources in a country with dire needs. It's something I'll call the PAR breakdown. And to break down this arrest, I'm going to ask common sense questions that are frequently overlooked and perhaps need to be asked more often, with the hope that our answers will assess if this was in fact the good policing we're talking about. Question number 1. Did the poorly parked cab pose a threat to public safety? Okay, it seems intuitive, but it should be emphasized that using a weapon that could be lethal should only be deployed in the most extreme circumstances, which begs the question, what was the threat to public safety that justified the use of force? Whose life was in danger, or what law had been broken to the extent that it posed a threat to the public? What heinous crime, exactly, was the officer trying to prevent? Well, I would venture to say there is no evidence that any of these thresholds can be met. So let's give a big no to question 1. Question number 2. Did the officer conduct a fair and informed investigation of this incident? One aspect of law enforcement that is often overlooked is how important fact-finding is to the smooth functioning of the entire process. If indeed the idea of hiring cops and prosecutors and judges to enforce laws is worthy of our time and money, none of these processes will operate as intended unless the system has procured pertinent facts and, as much as possible, witness accounts of what happened and why. So, to judge if this officer made any effort to factually assess the situation or acquire witness statements, let's watch the beginning of the encounter again.
Come here to
You have a driver's license,
Why
sir?
you need my driver's license?
Because now I'm now contacting you, so now I need to see your driver's license.
Why? What reason you want to see?
I'll give you about 2 more seconds. I'm gonna make this an official stop. You want me an official stop, or you just want to keep it cool?
No, I'm asking you a question. What's the problem?
Because he called me over here because you're parking in a no parking
I
zone.
understand. I just dropped the client here.
Okay. Can you produce your driver's license, sir?
I will, but you need to tell me the reason.
Go ahead and step out of the car.
You need to tell me, officer.
Go ahead and step off the car.
Hold on, officer, hold on.
Come on.
Don't force me. Don't force me. Hold on. What I did wrong? Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
I would say it's fair to mark this another big no. Not only did the officer fail to assess the situation, he pulled his taser before Salim could ask or answer a single question. So that's another big no. Question number 3. Was there a more cost-effective solution that could have solved this problem without involving the justice system? This is perhaps the most overlooked point of analysis. Was this use of law enforcement worth what it costs? How much harm did it prevent as opposed to how much harm it inflicted on Salim and the taxpayers who funded it? Now, let's just try to answer this question based upon the premise that Mr. Salim was at worst illegally parked. And we should mitigate that stipulation with the fact that he was doing essential work. He had dropped off a customer who was visiting the pharmacy to pick up medication during the pandemic. So, was the $5,000 he spent on his defense, the court costs, officers' pay, prosecutor salaries, and possible officer overtime worth the effort to mitigate the problem of an illegally parked cab? Was the expenditure of public and private resources commensurate with the threat of, and I'm quoting here, parking in a no parking spot? Of course not. Not even close. I think a $50 parking ticket would have sufficed if that was necessary at all. Maybe, and I don't want to tell Officer Friendly how to do his job, a quick suggestion to move the vehicle would have been probably more effective and achieve the ultimate goal of making sure people park in appropriately marked spaces. So, where does this assessment leave us? Well, I think it's clear that this arrest fails our PAR breakdown analysis on multiple levels. It was a bad use of resources, time, and taxpayer dollars. It was risky and fraught use of force aimed at poorly parked cars. And most important, it was an arrest that inflicted far more damage to both the target and the broader community than the threat of an errant taxicab parked where he shouldn't park. The point is, unless we ask questions precisely like these, law enforcement will interpret our acquiescence to this type of over-policing as affirmation It's the way we want to be policed. If we do not parse the countless useless arrests made every day across the country, there is no reason for the police to police better. And finally, and most importantly, if we don't hold our criminal justice system to the same exacting performance standards that our profit-prone capitalist society subjects the rest of us to, we will never be able to correct the system that makes this type of bad policing not just possible, but probable. I'd like to thank my guest, Mr. Salim, for joining me today and for sharing his experience with us. Thank you, Mr. Salim. And of course, I would like to thank my reporting partner, Janus, for his writing, editing, and research on this piece.
Tay, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And I would like to thank friend of the show, Noli D, for her support. Thanks, Noli D. And I want you watching to know that if you have evidence of police misconduct or brutality, please share it with us and we might be able to investigate for you. Please reach out to us. You can email us tips privately at par@therealnews.com and share your evidence of police misconduct. You can also message us at Police Accountability Report on Facebook or Instagram, or at Eyes on Police on Twitter. Or of course, you can message me directly at Taya's Baltimore on Twitter and Facebook. And please like, share, and comment. I do read your comments and I try to answer your questions whenever I can. And if you can spare a dime, please hit the donate link below. My name is Taya Graham, and I am your host of the Police Accountability Report. Please be safe out there.